sectors, and that will lead us directly into the employment stage. We want to see how we can create a blueprint in Africa. What action can stakeholders, take so that we can actually combine us as youths, finding these opportunities and actually just getting, us and being employed, or probably creating employment for the rest of the African youth. The panel will consist of Mrs. Fatih Enz Hassan, Supervisor, Human Capital Division of Odonepad African Union, Mr. Afolabi Imokwede. I apologize if I don't get that name correctly. I'm trying on my Africanism. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Job Creation, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Tapera Jeffrey Muzira, Coordinated Jobs for Youth in Africa Strategy, African Development Bank, Cote d'Ivoire. The moderator for this session is our very own Executive Director, Ms. Chinwe, who is a rock star, as now we will start calling her a rock star. You have our attention. Please tackle the topic, Job Creation Blueprint in Africa, Stakeholders Action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Asha. Thank you everyone for staying with us. So now we're jumping right into this session, very important session, Job Creation Blueprint in Africa, Stakeholders Action. And so in this session, of course, in my welcoming speech, I had mentioned the gap between the jobs created at 3.1 million compared to over about 12 million youths that enter the job workforce every year. So now this session is about trying to find out what are our stakeholders doing right now to create jobs for the youth across Africa. So can I show you things are going on, actions are being taken. So interestingly, this session we have a really key people from different key organizations. So I'm just going to go ahead now and introduce our panelists. So the first is Mrs. Fatih Enz Hassan. So she's a national of the Republic of Niger, serves in Midrand, South Africa at the African Union Development Agency, AUDA, NEPAD. She is the supervisor of the Human Capital and Institutions Division. Her role is to provide leadership in the development and implementation of relevant projects, interventions, and tools to support government of the 55 union member states in leveraging their human capital for inclusive development. Prior to joining Union NEPAD, Mrs. Enz Hassan worked in Europe for more than 10 years as a management consultant and as a program manager, supporting the transformation of private and public entities. Her interest in education, employability, and equal opportunities had led her to take part in several initiatives, serving communities in both France and Niger since 2007. So Mrs. Enz Hassan holds an engineer degree from École Nationale de Statistique et d'Économie Appliquée d'Abidjan and an MBA from French Business School, ESSEC. She speaks English, French, and Hausa. You're welcome, Mrs. Enz Hassan. Is she here? Yes. Introduce the next panelist, Mr. Afolabi Imokwede. He's a senior special assistant to the President on Job Creation, Federal Republic of Nigeria. So Mr. Afolabi Imokwede is a senior special assistant to the President on Job Creation and has served as the head of Empower Job Creation components of the President Muhammadu Buhari's National Social Investment Program between 2015 to 2019. Prior to his appointment to the national assignment, he was the pioneer CEO of MSC Consulting Limited, an accountant by profession. He's an experienced international development consultant with focus on construction, real estate, and small business development. A certified project management and human capital strategist, HCS, and emphasis on technical, vocational education and training. He's a much sought after speaker on education and employment, job creation, skills development, economic inclusion, and affordable housing. And so he volunteers with Faith Foundation. You're welcome, Mr. Imokwede.
Thanks, Chinwe. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Good to have you. Welcome.
Yes.
And the last panelist is Mr. Tapera Jeffrey Muzira. He's the coordinator for Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy of the African Development Bank Group. So Mr. Muzira is passionate about the youth, private sector development, and creating decent jobs. In this field, he has been designing projects, mobilizing resources, and leading teams across the private sector, government, and the UN system in several countries in Africa for more than 20 years. At the ADB, he coordinates the bank-wide Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy to equip 50 million young people with jobs through integration, innovation, investment by 2025. He's a mathematician, business and marketing graduate from University of South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Switzerland. You're welcome, Mr. Muzira. Okay, so we go back right into the session with Mrs. Fatih Hassan. So Mrs. Fatih Hassan, I'm just going to ask you the very first question. Please tell us more about your role, your job at the AUDNEPAD. What's AUDNEPAD doing right now to target youth empowerment and employment? So for this, I think we go ahead and play a video that she has before she says.
The Africa we want. Transforming Africa through the new Partnership for Africa's Development, known today as NEPAD Agency, was the vision of African leaders who founded it in 2001. This flagship African Union program's socio-economic objectives are eradicating poverty, promoting sustainable growth and development, integrating Africa into the world economy, and accelerating women's empowerment. NEPAD aims to achieve the socio-economic goals in Agenda 2063, a strategic framework for Africa's transformation for the next 50 years. This will eradicate poverty, close inequality gaps, and through industrialization, integrate Africa into the world economy, bringing Africa and global partners together by facilitating and integrating inclusive delivery on regional priorities and programs. What are NEPAD's aims in concrete terms? Wealth creation and economic opportunities through agriculture. CADEP, 42 out of 52 states who adopted NEPAD's comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, committed to allocating 10% of their budgets to agriculture. This will improve their chances of attracting investments, including within the private sector. CADEP has improved agricultural coordination and accountability, increased public spending, sustained agriculture-led growth, and improved food security. Improved food and nutrition security, bringing an end to hunger. In 7 countries, our nutrition and food security program improved homegrown school feeding programs and developed menu planner tools for nutritious school meals using locally available foods. Enhanced governance to protect and sustain natural resources and the environment. NEPAD's fisheries, governance, and trade programs encourage African countries to embrace policy reforms, improving productivity, profitability, sustainability, and welfare benefits within Africa's fisheries. The 2014 Policy Framework and Reform Strategy for Fisheries and Aquaculture in Africa is currently being implemented in all 55 states, strengthening delivery of quality health services. Our African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Program is establishing and improving standards and regulations for economic development and job creation, developing infrastructure, and promoting trade. Our infrastructure development and science and technology programs promote regional economic integration by building mutually beneficial infrastructure and strengthening countries' ability to trade, which increases global competitiveness. Innovations in M&E and spatial planning for urban and rural transformation. Our programs support interventions that empower rural women and other vulnerable communities to cope with climate change and so sustain development. NEPAD's Transformed Livelihoods programs support African countries as they strengthen technical and vocation training systems and create decent jobs, particularly within their strategic agricultural systems. Establishing synergies with the international community, NEPAD's solid consensus-driven African platform enables a new, dynamic development agenda, putting Africa's people first, achieving Agenda 2063's goals, making a stronger African Union, and building the Africa we want.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, for sharing that. Mrs. Inzi Hassan. Oh, okay, so she's just joining back. I think network is going back and forth with her. Okay, so while we wait for her to come back on, so I go over to you now, Mr. Imukode. So tell us about what you're doing in creating jobs. As in your role is actually very, I think this topic was formed around your job title, right? Job creation. So that's really very, very important. In fact, that's why we are having this summit, to tackle unemployment and see the opportunities that are out there. Please, how do you dimension the unemployment issues in Nigeria? What are the broad programs in place to ameliorate this challenge?
Okay, well, I think it's afternoon now, but depending on where you are in the world listening, I guess it's best to just say greetings. Job creation, it's a global phenomenon. It's a global issue, and I've tuned in since the keynote speaker was delivering his address, and there have been a whole lot of conversations around this, even just the past few hours. So yes, it is an issue because first, if you look at Nigeria, since you've asked about Nigeria, even though we're talking Pan-Africa here, if you look at Nigeria, even just by the Q2 2020 numbers released by Nigerian statistics, in terms of absolute numbers, about 13.9 million youths that are unemployed, which is about 64% of the total unemployed as a country. So that is serious, and in a country as well that our population is youthful. 65% of our 200 million, or whatever you put the number, 190, 200 million, it's under the age of 35. And the growing youth board, just like Professor Soludo mentioned earlier this morning, it makes it a very serious issue that we must look at. Secondly, let me follow with what Pedro said from Cape Verde. I think primarily it is never the government's role directly really to create jobs. It is jobs happen when the different aspects of the economy interplay. In other words, the demand, the supply, that's how you actually create jobs. So most of the time, the disappointment we have is the issue around government and governments across the world, or maybe in Africa, thinking that they can create job campaigns, politicians go around and challenge with the various governments because, like, just leading to what Professor Soludo said, governments these days must be smart. You've got to have smart thinking government. We must embrace innovation and new creativity, even in our thinking as government. So that's another issue, and I'll speak more about that in a few minutes. The other point is the fact that if you then look at what we do in Pan-Africa with the African Development Bank's strategy for youth job creation, which they launched to 2016. Incidentally, I was there when it was officially launched in 2016 as well. When you look at that, coming to dimensioning, you see that it focuses on three broad pillars. One is agriculture, and you just watched the NEPAD video, which again focuses a lot on agriculture. But I want to take the president of AfDB, Dr. Additional, says we need to take our agriculture away from culture, but to business. But basically, that sector is one. Two, industrialization. and 3, the digital world. I mean, this is the 4th industrial revolution, and the knowledge economy and the digital world are going to play key roles. Then when you come in locally, even into Nigeria, since you asked me about Nigeria and my oversight is over that one country as a member of the African state, you realize that our focus is also not too different from what Nepal has shared and what AfDB has shared. I mean, Nigeria as well, agriculture is a big push. You see it both at the federal level, at the state level, and at community level, just as our rural farmers have always done. As part of a lot of our industrialization efforts, you see construction going on, you see infrastructure development, which also has many components of construction in there. And again, you would also see ICT and and digital, ICT and digital. So those are, again, the components. Now, when you dimension, so those are our focus, right? Those are more like the key sector focuses for Nigeria and I think for Africa. But when you dimension the problem, I won't speak much on that because Professor Soludo did quite a good job on dimensioning the problem. One is our education. That's very, very important. And the faster Nigeria and the other African states, the faster and the fastest, not even faster now, will drive education reforms from the bottom up. Meaning basic education to secondary education, then obviously to tertiary. The faster we do that, the better for us to solve our employment challenges, because the root cause, if you're looking to solve a problem, you must first identify the root cause. The root cause is the quality of our education, the style and quality of our education. That's the root cause. However, a lot of what we then do are what you call, surgical approaches, interventions to immediately address those who have gone through the education system. So in other words, they are now in the labor market and they are relearning and retooling themselves. So you find, just like we did in Nigeria with the Empower program, where a lot of unemployed graduates are put through a volunteer program for upwards of 2 years and above, and with digital tablets, they were able to relearn and retool, and also had opportunity to volunteer off what they were learning. So it was a learning, work and entrepreneurship based program. So we that's to take care of those who have now left the education setting. Even though you never stop learning, you learn throughout your life. But we must address education to ensure that we are giving the relevant skills that are required in the market. Another thing, of course, we must look at, and which also borders on some of the things we've done and the government continues to do, is entrepreneurship. He said it clearly during the keynote. The white-collar jobs are really not there anymore, because who are those that would require the white-collar jobs? It's basically the government bureaucracy, the civil service or public service, and the formal sectors. But all statistics, all research from time and time have shown that in Africa, the bulk of our economy is the informal sector. And if it is the informal sector, then entrepreneurship skills, how to, the competency beyond certificates, what you're able to do, how you're able to do, begin to become drivers of how you become gainfully engaged in that sector. And that closely related to business and to entrepreneurship is the technical vocation that he spoke about. Now, whether you're looking at agriculture, whether you're looking at infrastructure, whether you're looking at construction, how we revive our technical vocational education system is very critical. We sampled a bit of that under the Empower program as well, with Empower, industry skills to industry programs, be it in construction, in automobile, in hospitality, and even in technology, both in hardware repairs, maintenance, in software development, and in creative space. So that's that. Well, I guess my time is up.
Yes, I caught you right there. Of course, I'll come back to you. Okay, so let me thank you very much. Let me go now to Mr. Tapera. I had already introduced you, sir. I read your profile already. So please, I'd like to ask you now, you coordinate the bank-wide jobs, African Development Bank-wide job for youth in Africa, the Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy. And your goal is to equip 50 million young people and to create 25 million jobs by 2025. Please tell us about the Jobs for Youth in Africa. How does this strategy directly impact the youth? Tell us about it, please. Thank you.
Good day, Chinua. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much for the opportunity to invite the bank to this very important discussion. We, as you know, in May 2016, the board of the Africa Development Bank adopted the Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy. I think we have had the figures, we have had the context, so there's no need for me to repeat why it became so important for the bank to adopt this strategy. But what is key is that the strategy represents our commitment to maximize the employment outcome of every investment we make through our bank operations, to ensure that those investments are actually benefiting young people. So this is what the strategy is all about. And there are three things I just want you to remember about this strategy. The first one is integration. So across all bank operations, we make an effort to make sure that young people benefit. And the second part is we also support innovation and creativity. So we have a number of flagship programs that we have funded that are benefiting young people through our partner organizations. We also actively mobilize resources geared at promoting young people. For example, we have the Youth Entrepreneurship and Innovation Multi-Donor Trust Fund that has mobilized more than $50 million targeting young people in terms of innovation. So we have a number of flagship programs. Enable Youth in Agriculture is one of them. We have also what we call skills enhancement zones, which are found in our operations in agriculture, where we promote big investments in agriculture. And within those investments, we put skills enhancement zones for young people. We also have various other programs that are providing finance to young people. Our SME program is one of them. We have also another program called Boost Africa. We have another program called AFIRE. So we have many programs that are supporting young people under our finance component. So basically, this is what the strategy is about. It's just three things. It's integration across bank operations. It's innovation, supporting directly flagship programs that have proven that they can benefit young people. And these programs are programs by the bank, but also by other entities. For example, the Tony Olumelo Foundation program. We are also a partner of that. So we support any program that has demonstrated that it can have impact on young people under that innovation component. And we actively mobilize resources to support young people. So if you look at our annual spend before the bank was recapitalized, we're spending about $10 billion a year. So maximizing that investment is a major contribution of this strategy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you with a follow-up question, because this is really an area that I believe a lot of young people want to understand. How amazing strategies opportunities for the youth that the bank is creating through the Jobs for Youth in Africa strategy. So I want to ask, how can young people really participate in these opportunities? Are they supposed to work with the bank directly, or are there organizations they're supposed to work with? So how can young people really access most of these opportunities?
I think you need to allow me to unmute. Okay, yes, there yes. You go. Okay. Yes. All right. So I think, as you know, the bank works through intermediary organizations. So we do not have the capacity to service the needs and requirements of every individual young person on the continent. There are millions of them, and we are just a small team at the bank. So we leverage partnerships and strategic ones, particularly those that are much closer to young people, including those led by young people themselves. So we are working with an array of organizations, from those supporting young people through business development services and access to finance. For instance, we provide lines of credit to banks through our SME program to support small and medium enterprise development that are led by young people. So we work through intermediary organizations and formulate strategic partnerships, for instance, with an organization like yours that is supporting young people. And that is simply because of our limited capacity to be able to reach millions of young people.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Imokwede, I want to ask you, please, what are the programs currently available? Just briefly, because we are running out of time, the available programs that the youth can currently take advantage of right now in Nigeria.
Well, okay, so there are quite a lot, quite a few of them. So in my view, you would just, one of the things the young people must continue to do is just continue to scout for information and relevant information that applies to them. Just like Mr. Tapere mentioned, many times government would work through intermediary organizations that have the youth as a major focus. In Nigeria, for example, I know the federal government just launched a 75 billion youth investment fund which is under the Ministry of Youth. The Federal Ministry of Youth obviously going to be working with a lot of intermediaries as well, and they would stipulate the requirements or the specifications. So there are many. There are quite many, and in the government of Nigeria, it's a federation. You have the federal, the state, and the local government. So most states also have their own standalone programs, sometimes in collaboration with federal, sometimes the federal also. You would also find that with a lot of the federal programs, you run through the state as partners as well. So there are the series of it. And you also have even programs that are targeted to the micro, small, medium enterprise programs that are launched at different levels, different coordination, the small, medium enterprise development. That business development service is perhaps one of what young entrepreneurs need, even more than the money itself, or sometimes just as much as they need the money, because the BDS is what enables you to guide you, to mentor you, how to structure your business, how to be able to grow your business, and how to be able to attract even more money. And of course, in Nigeria, you have the Tony Elumelu Foundation that is doing fantastic work across Africa with a lot of young people as well. And there are a whole lot of young organizations, youth-led organizations that are also doing phenomenal work, especially in the innovation space. You see a lot of youth-led startups, incubators that are doing phenomenal work.
That's right. Okay, so someone just asked, just before you leave, just one sentence. Where can young people really quickly look out for opportunities that the federal government has? Is there a database? Is there a particular website or anywhere they can check?
No, so that again, and that's a question and a very good feedback. I think one of the things we must advocate for is for better coordination of a lot of these opportunities. Maybe a non-governmental organization will set up a portal or a platform where all of these opportunities can be harnessed. As they are launched, people, there's a platform that people can go. It's something, for example, you can champion, so it's just like a type of an information dissemination, just so that it doesn't get lost on us as young people. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
But it's a very good point.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that's an opportunity out there, someone that will coordinate that, to put in all the opportunities in one spot, right? So thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Nzi Hassan is back. Ma'am, if you can hear me right now, please say you can hear me.
I can hear you.
So you're welcome, please. Good to have you here. So we've played the video AUD and NEPAD. And so I'm just going to go right ahead because our time is almost up. I'm just going to go ahead, right ahead and ask you, speaking from the AU perspective, given that Africa has the youngest population of all the continents on the planet, like we know, and the African Continental Free Trade Area is beginning to evolve. So how do you see African youth fitting into the structures and businesses that will emerge in the free trade area? Because I think that's very key in the development of the continent that the AUD and APAD is working towards.
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to highlight one thing that is not coming out clearly from the introduction video. Okay. African Union Development Agency, AUD and APAD, is a body that was created by African Union member states, actually the heads of states of African Union. So we have the mandate of supporting African Union governments and population by increasing their capacity to really design and implement initiative, projects, programs, and overall national development plans that are also aligned with Agenda 2063, which is the continental blueprint, strategy, vision of the Africa we want. So everything we're doing is really a direct order from the member states, heads of states, the 55 heads of states and governments, or it's derived from a decision of the heads of states or a strategy that was adopted by the heads of states. So back to your question, I think that a successful entrepreneur is first someone that is able to find a solution to a specific problem. And the solution that they find is efficient enough or innovative enough or valuable enough that they are able to be paid for this, for people, consumers, accessing to this solution. And you know that we mentioned that Africa is a very young continent. The median age is 19.7 years old, which means that more than 50% of African consumers are under 20 years old. So the new generation is have been brought up with the new technology and a very specific, very unique social cultural environment. We see the manifestations of this in many ways, in many countries, even in Nigeria at the moment. And very often I feel that it takes a young person to understand the needs of this market, which is very young, and create the relevant solutions that are relevant within the context of this young market. So having said that, how do you support the youth to take advantage of something such as the African Continental Free Trade Area? Remember the main goal of the free trade area is to create a single market for goods and services that would be facilitated by the movement of persons. So the FCTA is being implemented in 2 phases. I'm sure you know about that. The phase 1 provides a framework for the liberalization of trade in goods and services. And when you focus on trade of goods, then the tariffs on over 90% of product categories. You know that as of today, African exports, 15% of African exports only go to other African countries. And when you compare this to intra-regional trade in Asia, it's 58%, in Europe it's 67%, and in North America it's 31%. And if you focus specifically on food, on beverages, on tobacco, it's only 9%. So looping back to the issue of agribusiness that is dear to our colleagues from African Development Bank. So in 10 to 15 years, depending on the countries, the tariff barrier will be removed for 90% of African goods. And we at AUD and APAD, we see this as a huge opportunity for African micro, small, and medium enterprises to address the needs of a new market beyond their national markets. So access to market will be facilitated by removal of these barriers, but MSMEs also need access to financing opportunities.
Exactly.
Yes, as AUD and EPAD, we're working with financial institutions to provide affordable finance. I'm saying affordable finance, and I'm not saying grants, because we do not believe in grants, which I personally call magic money.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The systems, it will improve the conducive environment so that MSMEs have a better access to funding in the real world. In this view, the grants or magic money, they don't do the trick. So obviously, if a partner comes with grants, we will help them implement the grant program, but we are focusing really on how do we support financial institutions to provide affordable finance that is relevant to micro, small, or medium enterprises. So on another hand, we also understand that for a company to be able to apply for commercial loans or to be considered for equity investments, and also to be able to manage additional funds, to be able to pursue new markets, they need to increase their capacity. So this is why, as part of the 100,000 SMEs initiative that we have launched last year and that we are accelerating in 2020, we have launched a sub-component that is MSME Academy, and we have launched it a month ago. And we have trained about 4,000 SMEs in 8 countries, including Nigeria.
Oh.
The objective of the 100,000 SMEs is to reach out to 100,000 micro, small, medium enterprises by the end of 2021 and provide them services either related to access to new markets, access to finance, and access to critical strategic capability. So ultimately, we will create the largest database of African micro, small, and medium enterprises on one hand, and on the other hand, we will build the largest portfolio of services to MSMEs. And we will do so internally with our own means and following our own strategic objectives. We will also do so with partners from the public sector, international organizations, but also private sector and financial institutions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. That's quite insightful. And the last option you talked about, the MSME Academy that was just launched. Let me just ask you now, what's the way, how does AU create awareness for its programs for young people? Just make it quick because our session is going on. How do we get to know about the programs that you roll out for the youth and how they can apply? Is there particular, because I think everything kind of stays at the top level. So a lot of young people don't actually get to know about these opportunities that are out there for them. So what's being done about creating awareness? Just quick.
You know that African Union Development Agency, AUD and EPAD, is the technical arm of African Union. Mm-hmm. As such, we do work hand in hand with African Union Commission. Mm-hmm. This is one. So there's a department that is dealing with youth matters. And this department does a lot in terms of outreach, in terms of disseminating information on opportunities. You have to follow African Union Commission HRST, Human Resources Science and Technology Division. You have to follow them. Remember that the African Union chairperson also appointed a special envoy on youth, Mrs. Aya Shebi. She's also very, very active on social media. You also have to follow her. You have to consult the African Union website for opportunities. You have to consult also AUD and EPAD's website. And obviously, African Union Development Agency's social media accounts, where we absolutely, every time we post information about any new opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for that rich information. Everyone consult all the website, consult relevant organizations like she has mentioned. Thank you, ma'am. I'm just going to go right now to Mr. Tapera. Mr. Tapera, just the last question for you, please, because we're like out of time. Mr. Tapera, of all these initiatives, the blueprints from different countries, from the bank, at the African level, would you say there's anyone that is more, that should I say, that has more impact that can be replicated already, or should we keep trying to see what's going on. That's one. And the last question, what do you think about the kind of the platform that the Grand Africa Initiative is creating for youth engagement in Africa? How would it advance the course of Africa? What do you think? What's your opinion? 2 questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for those 2 questions. Let me start by the first one, blueprint. There's no silver bullet because, of course, every context is different. We have young people in fragile and transition states. The strategy there is different. We have young people in middle-income countries. The strategy is different. We have young people also in developing countries. So context plays a very important role in determining what works best for you. But there are lessons and good practices. So I'll just give 3 important ones, which I think every strategy needs to consider. The first one is invest in entrepreneurship. Okay. Our private sector is so small, it's creating less jobs as compared to people coming on the labor market. So we need to grow the private sector. We need to grow the cake. There are not enough jobs on the market, just in terms of number. So we've got to invest in entrepreneurship. So every strategy must have an aim to invest in entrepreneurship. The second one is industrialization. You just heard our colleague talking about the importance of value chain development, the importance of manufacturing. We can't continue to export commodities and raw materials. We are exporting our jobs. So we have to industrialize. If we are thinking of millions of jobs, then we need to think at the same level of ambition. We have to industrialize the private sector. And then finally, the third part is micro and small enterprise development and formalization. So it's important to create incentives and pathways for formalization. Most of our economies are largely informal. And we need to put incentives and pathways for growth in place to formalize the informal economy so that we create more decent jobs for young people. So those 3 areas for me are coming out as good practice and lessons from the various strategies that are on the continent. So no silver bullet. The context is important. And those 3 areas, entrepreneurship, industrialization, and formalization are key.
Okay, thank you.
So and the question. The second question was about the platform. Look, there are 2 things that every entrepreneur knows are critical. One is networks. The second is mentorship. And you can get those 2 things from platform-based services, such as what you're putting in place. It's very, very critical that you avail the opportunity for networks and mentorship to support entrepreneurship and especially among young people. So these platform-based services like this one are very, very critical in terms of business development services. In fact, for all I know, if you want access to finance, you can find it in networks. Networks can unlock a lot of things other than just business development services. Thanks very much, Jim.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time. And then to Mr. Imokweda, please make it brief. Just one statement, the same question. Have you seen a blueprint that's working that can be easily replicated across Africa or replicated in Nigeria, as the case may be? And what's your thought about what Grand Africa is doing? Thank you.
Well, I think I won't repeat the point of blueprint. Everything we've said here are all blueprints we've all demonstrated. And what we need is the synergy of harnessing all this information so that it's easier for our people to access and to apply and to engage with them. That's one. The second thing for me, it's really about, in all of these blueprints, it's about value chain linkages. Yes, there's a journey to grow from micro, small, informal businesses into structured growing businesses. And it's the value chain linkages through backward integration that will many ways help. And yes, platforms like yours as a business development service organization or as a type of aggregator, whether it's information aggregator or a value chain aggregator, are very important. And those are the platforms that must expand for us to really be able to carry the Pan-African message. Yes. So those are, I'll drop those in addition to what every other person has said.
Thank you very much. That was really insightful. Thank you, sir. And now the last, Mrs. Hassan. Mrs.
Yes.
Hassan.
Yes, I can hear you.
Same question. The last thought. Yeah.
Well, I couldn't agree more with my colleagues from AfDB and from Nigeria, Mr. Ufalobi. This is exactly what Dr. Dlamini Zuma, which was the previous chairperson for African Union Commission, advised that we follow. Industrialization. It's a big missed opportunity. Nobody knows really how you create jobs. It also circles back to issues such as economic development. And you know that we need to create such a bulk of jobs. This is such a young continent and it's growing so fast. The need for jobs is growing so fast. And for a country to develop in this context and to create jobs in this context, it has never been done before. Remember, we are in the context of globalization where, you know, as an investor, I can decide where I get any link of my value chain anywhere. Depending on the wages, depending on the taxes, depending on the regulation, I can decide, you know, to grow my oranges in Colombia, then ship them to Namibia to get them processed, and then send them again to Brazil to package them. This is something that we have seen. So how do you develop? Also, there's a need, there's an urge from the population that this growth is inclusive. I'm led to see a country that was able to lay the grounds for inclusive development, for development in an inclusive environment. Look at even the Western countries. They have been able to kickstart their development in a very different context where there was no, you know, democracy for all. Some of them were even, you know, benefiting from slavery. You know, citizens were not equal, and we are striving for equality. We're striving for inclusion, and in the same time, we want to develop and create new jobs. It has never been done before. The only thing, as my colleague said, there's no silver bullet. The only thing we can do is to share knowledge, is to collaborate, is to look at what has worked, what has not worked in various countries. First, within the continent, we need to be very comfortable about the fact that most of the solutions for Africa's development are existing in the continent, then in the global south, and also with our friends from other countries, the north, the west. So this is really what we're trying to do to create an environment for member states. And when I say member states, not only governments, but also the youth, to be able to share knowledge and to push for solutions that are benefiting the population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am, for such rich contribution. So with this, we come to the end of this session. So I'll leave you all with this. Our strategy must invest in private sector and entrepreneurship that is key, industrialization, MSc enterprise development and formalization, value chain linkages through backward integration. And again, the platforms are very important to aggregate, to network, to disseminate information, and even for access. And interestingly, young people are in better position to create solutions for Africa's young market. This has been a very insightful and interesting conversation with our very amazing panelists. Thank you very much, Mrs. Fatih Nzi Hassan. Thank you, Mr. Ufalobi Imokwede and Mr. Chapera Muzira. Thank you very much for joining this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Well done, and keep winning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chino, and all the distinguished panelists. You really learned. And it's just a start of conversation on what we as the youths of Africa and the diaspora, of course, we need to do so that we can develop ourselves and develop the next generation that is to come.